When people talk about success, they often focus on strategy, skill, or luck. Those things matter. But none of them mean anything if your mindset isn't aligned with your goals. What's going on in your head, day in and day out, that internal dialogue carry around with you? That's where it all begins. It's the soil. Everything else is just seed. And if the soil's no good, nothing grows right. Now, I'm not saying belief alone makes everything happen. But I am saying that without it, almost nothing does. Believing you're the best isn't about pretending you're perfect. It's not about walking into every room with arrogance. It's about knowing, deep down, that you are worthy of being in the room, that you have what it takes, that no matter what happens, you belong in the fight. And that kind of belief isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you decide. There's a concept in psychology called self-fulfilling prophecy. It means that what you expect tends to shape what you experience. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll find ways to sabotage your own progress. You won't speak up in that meeting. You'll hesitate at the moment that mattered most. You'll shrink when you should have stepped forward. Why? Because your mind already told you the outcome. It already decided you couldn't win. But when you walk in with belief, even imperfect, slightly nervous belief, you change your posture. You change the way you speak, the way you look people in the eye, the way you carry your presence. And people notice. The world responds to confidence. Not because confidence is magic, but because it signals conviction. And conviction is contagious. See, you can't outperform your self-image. You might try, you might fake it for a while, but sooner or later, the belief you hold about yourself will catch up to your actions. That's why changing your outer world starts with changing your inner one. You don't wait to be the best, and then start believing it. You believe it first, and then you grow into that belief through action. Now let's not confuse this with delusion. This isn't about ignoring your flaws. Quite the opposite. Believing you're the best means you care enough to confront your weaknesses. It means you're committed enough to improve them. It means you're not comparing yourself to the person next to you. You're competing with the highest version of yourself. The one who shows up with discipline, who owns every room they walk into not because they're loud, but because they're grounded. Solid. Philosophers have talked about this for centuries. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, said the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. That's a man who ran an empire, fought wars, faced betrayals. And still, he understood that it's the mind, not the moment, that defines you. We live in a world that's constantly feeding you reasons to doubt yourself. Social media, metrics, likes, followers, titles. All these external things try to tell you whether or not you're enough. But here's the true thing: no external measure will ever compensate for an internal void. If you don't believe in yourself, no number on a screen is going to fix that. And if you do believe in yourself, no failure can break you. There's something powerful, even dangerous, about a person who knows their worth. Not the inflated kind that needs validation. I'm talking about quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need to speak loud because it's built on truth. That's the belief I'm talking about. But belief isn't passive. It's not just a feeling that floats into your chest one morning while you're brushing your teeth. It's a decision. A mental contract you sign with yourself every single day. And sometimes you've got to renew it when things get hard. Especially when they get hard. Because that's the test. When life doesn't go your way, when things fall apart, when you lose, when they doubt you, when you doubt yourself. Can you still believe you're the best? Can you still carry yourself with dignity, with purpose, even in the storm? That's where real belief lies. Not in comfort, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, when no one is watching. When it's just you, your goals, and your mindset. I've seen people with less talent win because they had more belief. I've seen the most gifted people in the world never reach their potential because they couldn't get out of their own head. And I'll tell you why: talent without belief is wasted. But belief without talent, that grows talent. That refines it. That forces it to evolve. So if you want to believe you're the best, start by treating yourself that way. Don't wait for the world to clap for you. Clap for yourself when no one else does. Keep showing up with the energy of someone who already knows how the story ends. Let your actions catch up to your vision, not the other way around. Speak to yourself like someone you love. Train your thoughts like you train your body. With consistency, intention, and care. Don't feed your mind junk and expect clarity. Don't poison your spirit with doubt and expect excellence. Because at the end of the day, Belief is the beginning of greatness. And without it, the rest doesn't matter. So if you walk out of here with one thing today, let it be this: what you believe about yourself will shape everything else in your life. Act accordingly. Let me tell you something most people won't. Belief alone isn't enough. You can say the affirmations, you can write your goals down, you can hype yourself up in the mirror. But if you're not prepared, if you haven't put in the work, that belief will collapse under pressure. It'll fold the moment life asks you to prove it. Because belief without preparation is a house with no foundation. It might look solid from the outside, but the first storm will expose the truth. See, preparation is what makes belief real. It's what gives your confidence weight. You don't truly believe you're the best until you've seen yourself do the work required to become the best. You've sweated for it, sacrificed for it, studied for it, bled for it. And once you've done that, once you've prepared with everything you've got, then you have every right to believe. Not because someone said so, not because the world approved, but because you know what you've poured into the process. That's the part people skip. We live in a culture that's obsessed with outcomes. Winning, fame, results. But real belief is built in the shadows, in the quiet hours when no one's watching. It's built in the gym before dawn, in the rehearsal room after everyone's gone home, in the practice reps, the rewrites, the rejection letters, the late nights. That's where belief earns its legs. And if you skip that part, you're not building belief. You're building illusion. Now, I don't say that to discourage you. I say it to liberate you. Because belief isn't some mystery gift that drops out of the sky and lands on the chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to prepare. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to be born with genius or gifted with charisma. You just have to be willing to do what others won't. You have to be willing to prepare like your future depends on it. Because it does. There's a reason the military drills every day. There's a reason athletes train year-round for moments that last seconds. There's a reason artists practice the same lines, notes, steps, or strokes over and over again until it becomes second nature. It's because when the moment arrives, when the curtain lifts, when the lights come on, when the challenge hits, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation. And that's the truth most people overlook. They want to believe they'll perform well when it matters. But when it matters, it's too late to build belief. Belief is built in advance. It's forged in the preparation. Let's go deeper for a moment. Psychologically, preparation gives your mind proof. The human brain is wired for evidence. It needs something to hold on to. Something it can point to when doubt creeps in. That's when preparation is so powerful. It becomes your internal file cabinet of receipts. When fear whispers, "You can't do this," you've got the proof to respond. I've done the work. That's not ego. That's earned confidence. Think about the greatest performers. Musicians, speakers, leaders, athletes. What do they all have in common? They've rehearsed the moment before the moment came. They've visualized, practiced, drilled, failed, and repeated. They've invested hours no one saw so they could deliver minutes everyone remembers. And the irony is, the more you prepare, the calmer you become. You stop overthinking. You stop hoping things go right and start knowing you're ready no matter how they go. Preparation removes the panic. It gives you control in chaos. It anchors you when the room starts spinning. Philosophically, preparation is an act of respect. Respect for your craft, for your calling, and for the people you serve. When you prepare deeply, you're saying, "I care enough about this mission to give it my best before the world ever sees the result." That's a powerful place to operate from, because it means your belief is not rooted in applause. It's rooted in purpose. And here's the deeper part most never realizing: preparation is spiritual. It's not just about getting ready for an event. It's about becoming someone new in the process. Every time you prepare, every time you put in the work, when it's inconvenient, when you're tired, when you rather do something else, you're building character. You're shaping identity. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't wait for opportunities. You're becoming someone who creates them. And when that identity is locked in, when you've put in the hours and become solid from the inside out, your belief becomes unshakable. Not perfect, not invincible, but anchored, grounded. You know who you are, and no outcome can take that from you. There's a story about Kobe Bryant. He once showed up to a gym hours before a game and practiced alone for almost 2 hours before the team arrived. A reporter asked him why he was training so intensely before a regular season game, and Kobe said, Because I want to make sure I've done everything I can before I go to war. That's belief built on preparation. That's what makes champions. Not talent alone. Not hype, but relentless preparation. So if you want to believe you're the best, start by preparing like you are. Stop waiting for motivation and start building momentum. Create routines. Build rituals. Study the greats. Watch film. Learn from failure. Ask better questions. Do the boring stuff. Sweat the details. Earn the right to believe. Because when you do that, when you prepare with consistency and purpose, you begin to notice a shift. You don't need to fake confidence anymore. You become confident. You don't need to chase greatness. You start living in it. And the world can feel that. You walk different. You speak different. You don't brag, but you don't shrink either. You carry yourself with quiet strength because you've put in the time. Preparation isn't glamorous. It's not flashy. But it's the most honest thing you can do. It's the part no one sees that makes everything they see possible. So here's the truth you need to remember, Lou. If you want unshakable belief, earn it through relentless preparation. Don't just hope to be the best. Train like you already are. One of the biggest threats to self-belief isn't failure. It's noise. And by noise I mean the constant stream of opinions, comparisons, criticisms, distractions. Everything the world throws at you to pull you away from your center. You can do all the internal work. You can get your mindset right. You can prepare like a professional. But if you don't learn how to tune out the noise, you'll still find yourself stuck, second-guessing, chasing approval, or trying to live up to standards that were never yours to begin with. See, there comes a moment when you've got to decide whose voice matters most. Because there will always be voices trying to define you. The crowders, the experts, the crowds. Sometimes it's not even other people. It's your own voice, distorted by fear, shaped by past wounds, speaking in the language of hesitation. But you weren't put here to echo noise. You were put here to listen. Not outward, but inward. To hear your own voice clearly enough that it cuts through all the static. The more you trust that voice, the less control the world has over your destiny. We've been conditioned to believe that validation comes from outside, from applause, from awards. But all of that is temporary. It fades. And if your belief depends on applause, then what happens when the room goes silent? If your identity is built on recognition, then who are you when no one's looking? You've got to be rooted in something deeper than public opinion. Because public opinion changes. It's unstable. It's driven by trends, emotion, convenience. But your inner voice, that's where your power is. That's the compass. That's the source of real clarity. And here's the thing, clarity doesn't always feel good. Sometimes your voice will tell you to walk away from what looks good on paper, to say no to what everyone else says yes to risk being misunderstood so you can stay aligned with your truth. That takes courage, because ignoring the noise doesn't mean pretending it doesn't exist. It means hearing it, feeling the pressure, facing the fear, and choosing not to let it steer you. In philosophy, there's a concept called authenticity. The idea that living a meaningful life requires aligning your actions with your own values, not someone else's script. The existentialist said it besting, freedom isn't just the ability to choose, it's the responsibility to choose yourself. And that choice happens every day. Do you trust your path enough to walk it, even when it's lonely, even when it's slow, even when people don't understand it? Because here's what's real, if you spend your life chasing noise, you'll never find peace. You'll be caught in a loop. Overthinking, over-explaining, overcompensating. And you'll forget what it even feels like to move from the gut, to speak from the soul, to act without permission. You've got to get still enough to hear yourself. You've got to build space between the stimulus and your reaction. You've got to train your mind to question the noise in E. Is this truth, or is this pressure? Is this intuition, or is this fear wearing a disguise? Sometimes the loudest voice isn't the most accurate. Just because something is repeated doesn't mean it's real. Some people talk the most because they fear the silence. Because the silence forces you to sit with yourself. And that's where the real work begins. We are constantly being pulled into comparison. That's another form of noise. You look left, you look right. You measure your progress against someone else's highlight reel. And every time you do that, you chip away at your own voice. You question your own pace. You forget that your journey isn't supposed to look like anyone else's. Comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the thief of direction. It'll make you start adjusting your path to fit someone else's metrics. And before you know it, you're successful. but in a life you didn't even want. You have to protect your mind like you protect your body. Don't let anything in that doesn't serve your vision. Guard your focus. Be selective with your energy. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every piece of advice applies to your mission. Not every crowd is your crowd. And sometimes the people who love you most will try to steer you off course. Not out of malice, but out of fear. They don't see what you see. They're not supposed to. That's why it's your vision. If you wait for everyone to understand, you'll never move. You'll spend your life trying to explain instead of execute. That doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you discern. It means you build a strong enough voice within that external noise becomes background static, not a script. And make no mistake, your voice will be tested. The higher you go, the louder the noise gets. That's why so many people plateau, not because they lack ability, but because they never learned how to navigate the noise. They got distracted. They got pulled into drama, into doubt, into self-betrayal, into needing to prove something. But you don't have to prove anything to anyone who doesn't understand your purpose. You're not here to perform for strangers. You're here to fulfill what you were called to do. And the ones who last, the ones who reach the highest levels of mastery, they all say the same thing at some point: you stop playing to the crowd and start playing from conviction. So let me ask you this: what would your life look like if you turned the volume down on everything around you and turned it up on what's inside you? What kind of decisions would you make? What kind of risks would you take? What kind of clarity would you feel? You don't need more noise. You need more truth, and truth doesn't scream. It doesn't beg for attention. It speaks in quiet, steady tones. You just have to be brave enough to listen, because once you trust your voice, truly trust it, you become unstoppable. You stop flinching at opinions. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop outsourcing your confidence. And you start building your life from the inside out. So remember this: while your voice is your power, learn to trust it, and the noise will never control you again. There's a universal truth that's often misunderstood: becoming starts with behaving. If you want to be the best, you don't wait for the world to label you as such. You act it before the title ever arrives. Because confidence is not the result of success. It's the prerequisite. Most people have it backwards. They wait for permission, for validation, for proof that they belong. And while they're waiting, someone else, someone with less talent, fewer resources, maybe even less experience, is moving. Why? Because you decided to believe, and they back that belief up with behavior. Now when I say act like it, I'm not talking about pretending. This isn't about arrogance, or putting on a performance. I'm not talking about faking anything. I'm talking about aligning your behavior with your vision. Before the evidence shows up. I'm talking about walking, speaking, thinking, and carrying yourself in a way that reflects who you're becoming, not just who you've been. You see, the mind follows the body, and the body follows the mind. It's a loop. If you carry yourself like you matter, you start to feel like you matter. If you speak with clarity and conviction, your thoughts start to sharpen. If you show up with discipline, even when you don't feel ready, you begin to become ready. That's how you shape identity. Not by waiting to feel like the best, but by living like it's already true, psychologically. This principle is rooted in something called embodied cognition. The idea that our thoughts and emotions aren't just influenced by what we think, but by how we physically act. You stand taller, you feel more powerful. You breathe deeper, you think more clearly. You take action, and suddenly your doubts don't feel so loud anymore. It's not magic. It's momentum. The world responds to how you show up. Not just what you say, but what your presence communicates. And when you move like you're already that person, when you operate from your highest self, you start attracting different situations. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Acting like it isn't about delusion. It's about alignment. It's about holding yourself to a higher standard before the circumstances demand it. It's about saying, "This is who I am," and letting your choices prove it long before anyone else believes it. And here's the key: it's not always going to feel natural at first. In fact, it might feel uncomfortable. That's not imposter syndrome. That's growth. That's you stepping into shoes your old self wasn't ready to fill. You've got to wear them anyway. Eventually, they stop feeling big. Eventually they fit. Growth feels strange because your identity is being upgraded. And that process requires friction. You're not pretending. You're progressing. You're conditioning your mind and body to operate at a new level, and that takes courage. Because the moment you decide to act like the best, people will challenge you. They'll question you. Not because you're wrong, but because your confidence makes them confront their own hesitation. And that's okay. You don't need universal approval to walk in excellence. You don't need applause to act like you belong in the room. What you need is consistency. Because confidence is cumulative. Every time you act in alignment with the person you're becoming, you reinforce the belief. Every time you show up with discipline, with focus, with integrity, you earn your own respect. And once you have that, no one can take it from you. Philosophically, this is about identity before outcome. It's about saying, I am this. Not, I will be this. Because the future you want isn't some distant fantasy. It's a reflection of what you're willing to embody right now. If you want to be a leader, lead. If you want to be excellent, execute with excellence. If you want to be respected, carry yourself with self-respect. You don't need permission to start living at that level. The decision is yours. And you know what's powerful? When you start acting like it, consistently, your environment starts to shift. People treat you differently. Not because you told them to, but because energy is real, behavior is magnetic. You walk into a room with clarity and purpose, and the atmosphere adjusts. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. Now, this doesn't mean you won't stumble. It doesn't mean you won't have moments of doubt or days when you question the path. But the difference is this. You'll keep showing up like the best version of yourself anyway. You'll build a foundation so strong that temporary emotions don't shake permanent values. And the more you act like it, the more natural it becomes. Not just in performance, but in decision making, in how you manage time, in how you treat people, in how you handle adversity. The habits of your future self become the patterns of your present. That's the transformation. Let me give you something practical. Ask yourself. If I already were the best in my field, how would I behave today? What time would I wake up? What would I say no to? What would I study? Who would I surround myself with? What distractions would I cut? What standards would I raise? Then go live that answer. Not tomorrow, today. Because here's the true thing: you're not waiting to become the best. You're choosing to behave like it until the world catches up. Every major breakthrough is preceded by a decision. A decision to step into the identity before the recognition. To walk in the room like you belong there. Even if your voice shakes the first few times. To carry yourself with the weight of your purpose, even when your resume is still being written. That's not ego. That's faith in action. And faith, when paired with disciplined behavior, becomes reality. So stop waiting for a moment to tell you're ready. Be the moment. Decide that you're enough. Not because you've done everything already, but because you've committed to becoming everything you're meant to. You don't need the title to live the truth. You don't need the reward to do the work. You don't need the spotlight to move with purpose. Act like it before you are it. Because how you move today determines who you become tomorrow. And when the world finally sees it, it won't be a surprise. It'll just be confirmation of what you've already known all along. Start behaving like the best now. And soon enough, no one will question it. Not even you. So here we are. We've talked about what it means to believe you're the best. Not in some empty, arrogant way, but in the way that honors your potential. In the way that demands something deeper from you. Because belief, real belief, isn't just a feeling, it's a decision. It's a discipline. It's a daily practice. It begins in the mind, where everything worth building starts. You have to cultivate a mindset that doesn't just hope for greatness. It expects it. Not because you're guaranteed success, but because you're committed to growth. That's the foundation. Then we build on it with preparation. With relentless effort behind the scenes. Because talent without discipline is just noise. And nobody becomes the best by coasting. You become the best by doing the hard things when nobody's watching. By preparing like the moment you've been waiting for could arrive at any time. And when it does, you're not surprised. You're ready. Then we talked about blocking out the noise, and tuning into your own voice. That quiet, steady voice that knows who you are, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. Trusting that voice is not easy. It takes stillness. It takes courage. But once you learn to honor it, the opinions of others lose their power. And your truth becomes louder than their doubts. And finally, we talked about behaving like it. Acting like the best before the world calls you that. Because success doesn't knock on your door when you're ready. It shows up when you're already moving like you belong in the room. You build the identity through action. You become it by behaving like it. over and over again, until it stops being something you do and starts being who you are. That's the path. This isn't about being better than anyone else. This is about being better than the version of you that settled, that hesitated, that waited for permission. This is about standing in the mirror and saying, I will not shrink. I will not coast. I will not defer my greatness to a more convenient time. Because there is no perfect time. There is only right now. So believe you're the best. Not because it's easy, not because it's guaranteed, but because it calls you to rise. Because it challenges you to grow. Because it dares you to live at full capacity, with no excuses, no hiding, no playing small. And if you do that, if you truly commit to thinking, preparing, listening, and moving like the best, then whether the world recognizes it or not, you'll know. And that knowing, that's the real win. Now go prove it, without saying a word.